everybody, I'm Nicole.
I'm Lindsay.
And I'm Sarah, and together we're the co-founders of Whale Tales, a living library of cetacean stories.
And today we are joined by yet another special guest. Woo woo woo!
So sit back and enjoy as we dive right in.
Today's episode features an interview with the very cool Dr. Clara Bird. Clara is a behavioral ecologist who uses remote sensing to study marine mammals. Her research is focused on understanding the relationships between behavior and the environment and individual characteristics, like age, sex, health, and so on and so forth. And after growing up in Michigan, Clara went on to earn her Bachelor of Science in Biology, concentrating on ecology and environmental science from Duke University, and then a PhD in wildlife science from Oregon State University, which is an awesome school. Not that I went there, I just think it's really cool, and we meet really cool people from there, including Clara, which is also where she worked as a postdoctoral scholar. Very fancy. Mm-hmm. She is now working as a research scientist at the Foundation for Marine Ecology and Telemetry Research, which is also just very cool.
Sadly, Nicole was attacked by an internet gremlin during this recording, so was unable to join the conversation for longer than 1 minute.
It was so sick.
Yes.
But
But thankfully, Lindsay and I were able to speak with Clara about her research on gray whales in Oregon, the specific populations along that coast, some of the issues that gray whales are facing this year, plus her photogrammetry and drone work. It was so cool to learn all about how all that works, all the technology and coding and everything in that. It was very great.
Yeah, it was a great conversation.
Yes.
And wait. Spoiler. Spoiler. Because I feel like our listeners know a lot of our feelings about gray whales.
Oh, yeah.
So even though I wasn't part of the conversation, because I have heard lots about it after the fact, and I'm excited to listen to the recording of it, is it too much of a spoiler to say that perhaps, just maybe, we've misjudged gray whales?
I wouldn't go that far, but I would. No, the research is really cool, and
yes.
I've definitely had some of my opinion change since Sarah and I went to go see the Oregon gray whales, which we do talk about in this conversation. They were much more interesting in Oregon because they're doing stuff than they were in my life when I was mad at them. So
our appreciation of gray whales continues to grow the more we learn about them.
Yes. They're still gray whales, but they're cool, and the research Clara has done and is doing on them is very cool.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I missed it, but excited to listen.
Yeah. It was a great conversation. Let's get to it.
Woohoo!
Okay, now we're here with Clara Bird, who's going to tell us about gray whales, which is not something I ever thought I would be excited to talk about, but here we are. So, thank you, Clara, for being here. Welcome. And to kick us off, why don't you tell us a little bit about who you are and your research on gray whales, and then also now your new things.
Yeah. Hi, thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
I'm currently a research scientist at the Foundation for Marine Ecology and Telemetry Research up here in Washington State. But up until 2 months ago, I was in the Marine Mammal Institute at Oregon State University, where I did my PhD and then worked as a postdoctoral scholar for a year studying gray whales. And so that is by far and away still what I am the most expert in. I've been in my new job for 2 weeks. So
Congratulations.
Yeah, don't have much to talk about from that, but lots to talk about from gray whale land. And so I spent my PhD and postdoc studying this delightful subgroup of gray whales called the Pacific Coast Feeding Group gray whales. So on the west coast of the US, the whales that we're most familiar with are the eastern North Pacific population. Those are the whales that spend their summers feeding up in the Arctic, and then they migrate all the way down the coast, very close to shore, and they winter in Baja California, Mexico. I always say they're very smart whales for making that choice. Yep. And then there's this subgroup that is technically part of that population, but when the whales start heading north for the summer to feed, they don't go all the way north. They stop right here in our backyard of the Pacific Northwest, which is both the coasts of the US and then also Canada. And they feed right here, very close to shore, all summer long. There's estimated to be just over 200 of them, and that there's a hot spot for their foraging, their feeding, right off the coast of Newport, Oregon, which is the location, conveniently, of the Hatfield Marine Science Center from OSU. And so my PhD advisor, Lee Torres, sort of was like, we have whales that come here every summer consistently, extremely close to shore. There wasn't a big research project on them out of Hatfield at the time. And so she started up this long-term study in 2014 and just started collecting lots of data non-invasively. And that included repeated sampling with drones. So filming the whales with the drone. And that's what my background is in. And so she hired me as her PhD student to analyze all that drone footage and study the behavior of those whales.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know anything about this because we don't really talk about gray whales. And I don't know, obviously they're migratory up here, so they just come by and then we're like, there's a gray whale, and then they leave. And that's basically the extent of our experience with them. But that's cool. I love a long-term study. That's I think one of my favorite things. Yeah. So
that's
amazing.
Very, very cool.
So with the population, so they're a population, so do they interact with the migratory ones, and their only difference is that they just kind of stop, but they breed together and all of that,
Yeah, so that's kind of a complicated question. The short current answer is that they are currently considered to be part of the exact same population. So they're considered a subgroup of the Eastern North Pacific population because they also go back to Baja in the winter. So they certainly have plenty of opportunity to mix. But there are some odd differences that we have found between this little subgroup and the much larger population that have led us to sort of wonder what exactly the sort of connections between the population and the subgroup are, and how if the management should change, or how we sort of define them should change. It's definitely evolving. But so, for example, with the long-term study that we've been able to uncover differences like the Pacific Ghost Feeding Group Gray Whales, or PCFG, if I ever just say those letters, that's what I'm talking about, this subgroup. They are significantly shorter and skinnier with smaller skulls and flukes, their tails, than Eastern North Pacific Gray Whales. So we used drone imagery and aerial imagery and whaling data from the Eastern North Pacific Gray Whales to compare their growth curves. And so even when they reach maturity, the PCFG gray whales are shorter, which is really odd. And so that's one big difference. And then there is evidence of, and I am not a geneticist in any way, but I've read the papers. So there is the mitochondrial DNA, or essentially what you inherit from your mother, does show separation between the two. But the nuclear DNA, so I guess the more mixed DNA, and please geneticists do not come for me, sort of does show mixing. So it's not they're not genetically considered very separated, which is why they are still considered the same population. But the mitochondrial DNA is showing the sort of maternal recruitment that PCFG mothers have calves that also end up being in the PCFG.
Oh,
okay. So
interesting.
Evolution and
that maybe makes sense because of they're raised by their moms for a period of time.
So they come back.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It's very interesting.
Fascinating. The shortness is very strange. Is it slowly evolution because they're not traveling? That doesn't even make any sense for being linked.
I mean, so there's a lot of questions about, especially because evolution is not fast, right?
No,
it's
not
not
at all.
It's infamously a very long process. And so we don't know exactly when this subgroup was founded. When did the whales start coming to the Pacific coast or to the Pacific Northwest? But we don't think it was long ago enough for it to for this difference to be just evolution. And all of these are absolute hypothesizing at this point, but when the whales come to feed off of the coast here in the Pacific Northwest, especially in our area in Oregon, they feed in water that is very shallow,
Right.
basically as deep as the whale is long, like sub 15 meters, and a gray whale is give or take 12 meters, like really shallow. And so we've wondered if this shallow water is like an ecological opportunity for the short whales. So they're almost like they're short because this is where short whales can succeed. And if maybe the really long ones aren't able to successfully forage in water that is so shallow, versus up in the Arctic, the water tends to be much deeper where they're feeding.
Yeah, it's easier for them to be successful in
Yeah.
Oregon, like in your area, rather than the bigger ones. So it's like inverse.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, and then I guess like they don't have to go as far, so they don't have to go as long without eating, and there's less risk of ship strikes and etc. and being eaten.
Yeah.
And blah, blah, all that.
Yeah. Yeah, so we do think that the short migration might be tied to them being skinnier, that they just don't have to build up the same amount of reserves. However, it is still concerning is not the right word, but like whales, especially these migrating whales, they need a lot. The females need a lot of absolute energetic reserve to have calves. And so if they're both short and skinny, that's concerning for what their potential calving rate could be. And so it might be this, we have this like running question of, is it an ecological trap or an ecological opportunity? And I mean, honestly, it's probably a little bit of both, but we're not sure which end of the scale it's going to end up on in the future.
Interesting.
That is interesting. Okay, before we can I just confirm, because there's the gray whales, as I said before, I don't know anything about these guys, which is like becoming more and more embarrassing as we start talking. So there's the gray whales in Depot Bay, and then there's also the sounders, which are Puget Sound ones.
Yeah.
So what are those also just separate populations that are similar to what's going on, but obviously different to yours, or?
So Depot Bay is just the PCFG.
Okay, so they're just slightly not in
Depot
Newport.
Bay, and they actually are also in Newport.
Yeah.
Like our study area goes up into Depot Bay. Like we include Depot Bay, and there are some whales that are like pretty much diehard Depot Bay whales. Like we don't see them further south.
Yeah, we saw some in Depot Bay 3 years ago,
3 years ago?
And they were just, the guides were talking about how much they are only there all the time, or not all the time, but they are only there.
And then there's others that like are in Depot Bay, and then we'll see them off of Newport or South Beach, and then they go back. And so so the Depot Bay ones are definitely that Pacific Coast feeding group. The sounders are sort of the weird exception. So those are not considered Pacific Coast feeding group gray whales. They are just the weird sounders.
Okay.
I mean, the very cool sounders.
Well, no, there's always going to be some weird whales that throw a wrench in all of the plans.
I mean, I will love gray whales forever because they're just the weirdos. Like that's what I love so much about them. But yeah, the sounders are sort of this like separate thing because they go to the sound and then they leave the sound, and they, I think, just go up to the Arctic for the rest of the summer.
Yeah. Right. So they just make a little rest stop.
Yeah, rest up. Yeah. And then, every once in a while they come here to exactly right next to my house, and then go back down. And we're just like, what are you doing up here? You're supposed to live in Puget Sound. This is not Puget Sound.
But yeah.
That's amazing. That's really cool.
Yeah.
So much more complicated than I thought.
Oh, yeah.
And you might have mentioned this, but I just wanted to clarify for myself and also maybe for our listeners, the whales that you have in this feeding group, do they all go to the same place in the winter, or do they go to different places in the winter, or do we know?
Yeah, that's a great question. So they do all go, well, I guess, okay, yes, they all go to Baja California, Mexico to winter. There's this sort of the more a classic scientist with like caveats is that,
of course,
we're not sure how much overwintering these whales do.
Okay.
I personally have found my like but whales that I recognize from Newport in Baja. So they
Right.
like some of them definitely go when they are mixing with the larger population.
Right.
We would love to know more about overwintering, because I think some whales probably do just stay instead of doing the whole migration, but they migrate south with the rest of the whales. And then it's hard because, right, Baja is like, there's like 3 major lagoon complexes, and that sort of like which PCFG gray whales, but most whales move between all lagoons throughout the entire winter. They're not necessarily like gonna like go to one lagoon and stay there, so that's all just jumbled down there.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
that makes sense. Yeah.
you guys aren't doing any sightings research in the winter in Oregon, or just
No.
floods? No. Okay.
Yeah, for one,
Too hard.
the weather.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yep. Relatable.
Yep. Okay, that's fascinating. So you've had IDs in Baja, but then do you know, like, when is the like latest and earliest that you see them in Oregon?
Also complicated, I'm guessing.
Yeah,
Well,
always.
I mean, the dates are in part, we like, for sanity's sake, we do research on the gray whales off Oregon from like late May to mid-October,
Okay. Yeah, fair.
Right.
which is almost most of the year.
Yeah.
It's just about half, just short of half the year. And so for us, and so like there are whales being seen by the
Before.
time we start, and there are whales still seen
Okay.
by the time we stop, and we just
Right.
have to have a start date and an end date as human beings with a very long field season who have
Yeah.
lives that we need to do outside of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is definitely like the time when they are mostly there, but before and after they're definitely still
Okay.
around.
Gotcha. So still an open question.
Yeah.
Cool. So we've been starting to hear, at least up here, about issues or like a lack of gray whales being around this season. And so we're like, for clarity for our listeners, we're recording this, it's the 1st of June. So the state of things might have changed by the time this episode comes out at the end of July, but maybe we just wanted to sort of talk about if you guys in Oregon and Washington, now that you're in Washington, are having any differences this year in particular, or things that we wanted to talk about that are maybe sort of topical for this particular season.
Yeah. Well, I guess, I mean, I know, so the increased number of strandings
Yeah.
is certainly an issue that I'm sure is on everyone's mind if you're on the West Coast and read about the gray whales. In terms of like seeing them in like alive and in the water,
Yeah.
it's really a bit too early to start
Gotcha.
to say anything, at least for us in Oregon.
Yeah.
In our field work, the team, obviously I'm not on that team anymore,
Right.
but they've just started. And so this time of year, we would still kind of expect the numbers to be a bit low for us down there. And we wouldn't really start to panic or say, oh my gosh, this is a terrible season until a bit later, which has definitely, we've had those seasons in the past. And it's hard. It is just so hard when you're, our study area is, I think, like 60 kilometers worth of shoreline. And so sometimes we're having a terrible season. And then we talk to folks, up in Vancouver Island, and they're like, we have all the whales. And you're like, great. Thrilled for you. Yeah. So I remember a couple years ago, we had some pretty low seasons, and I just kept going, they're not dead. They're not dead. They're not dead. But obviously that is to say the stranding numbers are bumping up again, all up and down the coast, which from what I've read and what it does seem to be sort of it seems quite similar to the unusual mortality event from that was officially closed a couple years ago.
Right.
Right. So from 2019 to 2023, there was in the US, unusual mortality event, which is sort of declared to be a time when the stranding numbers of any marine mammal species are above sort of baseline. And during those years, the reports were very much like what we're seeing these days. The gray whales were very emaciated, so super skinny, in poor body condition. And eventually that unusual mortality event was linked to prey availability in the Arctic associated with sea ice coverage. And as makes sense, because the trends in sea ice aren't
Going the right
change or
way.
aren't getting better. I think we're sort of seeing that just a continuation of that effect play out with
Right.
again these reports of the emaciated, so super skinny whales coming to shore.
Yeah, so I think
Yeah.
just talked about this. It must have been in our last episode. So the copepods, etc., who live on sea ice in the Arctic, there's not enough sea ice, so there's less of those. So the gray
Hmm.
whales who go to the Arctic are finding less food. So does that mean something like your whales would potentially do better or would not be part of this UME, or
Hmm.
if that's what it becomes, or
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, it's tricky. It's funny because in the Arctic, gray whales predominantly eat benthic amphipods, so like little critters buried in the sand, but the benthic amphipods are tied to sea ice because of honestly, I won't explain it, don't know
yeah.
it well enough, but sort of the
Yeah.
like algae growing under the sea ice that then
Hmm.
falls to the bottom and sort of that sort of it is linked to sea ice, but maybe not as directly as copepods or say krill in the Antarctic. But yeah, it is all about the availability of their prey. But you are exactly right. That means that there is a different story for the Pacific Coast feeding group. So
Right.
with during the well, I guess the most recent official UME that ended in 2023,
Hmm.
we did a comparison. My lab compared with data that was being collected in the lagoons during the lead up to the UME, so 2017 through 2019. So 2019 is when the UME was
Mm-hmm.
officially declared to have started. And that is the paper that showed us one, that on average, the CFG is skinnier than the Eastern North Pacific gray whales. But
Hmm.
leading up to 2019, the trend lines were the opposite. So
Oh,
the Eastern North Pacific gray whales were getting skinnier and the Pacific Coast gray whales were getting fatter.
yeah,
So by the time that the UME was starting, that is when the PCFG were technically in better body condition, but because
because there
also
was,
the
yeah,
EMP was
didn't have stuff.
declining.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, which makes sense. The process that drives prey production for the Pacific Coast feeding group is very different than the Arctic.
Yeah.
So it's hard because unless, like, it's hard for us to identify the whales that have stranded. Like, we can't, do photo ID unless it's very fresh.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And if we have a biopsy sample and a sample is collected from the carcass, then maybe those can be matched. But generally, we don't get the IDs of the whales that have stranded. So we
Right.
can't say officially that the Pacific Coast feeding group did not experience the
Right.
UME,
Yeah.
but the abundance estimate certainly did not change
Right.
Mm-hmm.
during the
Okay, that
UME.
makes sense.
And there is a
Yeah.
separate abundance estimate for the PCFG, and the body condition numbers tend to suggest to us that they were having a different story. And so the Pacific Coast feeding group on the West Coast, their prey is much more linked to upwelling, so that,
Hmm.
right, we get the super strong northern winds, and that pushes the warm water away from the coast. Cold, nutrient-rich water comes up um, to the surface, and then that starts this whole chain of primary productivity.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
gray whales mostly eat mysids, so tiny little shrimp, off the coast. And so there we have, like, climate change will also affect the trends of upwelling, and that will also affect the PCFG, but in a very different way than most of the population up in the Arctic.
It's fascinating.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
just
Indeed.
interesting. So, for our listeners, can you tell us about? Okay, I know, and this is one of the reasons why I have a lifelong vendetta about gray whales. Can you tell us about identifying how you would photo ID gray whales?
Yeah, so gray whales don't have the traditional dorsal fin
Mm-hmm.
of, say, a humpback or most other baleen
Hmm.
whales. They have dorsal knuckles, so just like bumpy little ridge along their back. And they also have very mottled skin sort of coloration patterns. So they do tend to have this like dark gray base and then a lot of
Hmm.
white markings and mottlings all over their body. And these are caused from a variety of things, just sort of random patterns, barnacle scars, scars from maybe killer whale rake marks, or just, I don't know, getting scratched up doing whatever they do. And so photo ID for gray whales, like from the traditional lateral, so the image of the side of the body, will use the dorsal ridge, the knuckles, similar to how you would use a dorsal fin. So you might you stare at the pattern and you say, oh, that's a really pointy knuckle, or the knuckles are really spaced far apart, or it's sort of a two close together knuckles and then a far away knuckle kind of thing. And then we will use the scarring on their body, which is challenging because obviously the scars change over time. It's kind of like looking at clouds and when you're with your friends and you're like, what do you see? Because there's several of us that are, have deep expertise in gray whale photo ID. And oftentimes all of us will be like, oh, I know that whale because of that marking and that marking. And someone else will go, oh no, I use that dot over there.
Right.
So everyone kind of like picks their landmarks for the different whales. But yeah, it's a lot of zooming in and trying to say, okay, it's dot dot dash on those two bodies.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a little trickier than gigantic killer whale dorsal fin or something like that.
Right. Yeah. But there is an abundance of markings to use. Right.
So that's something.
Some whales are too clean, I would say.
Yes, that is. Yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah.
That's very cool. And then, do you want to talk maybe a little bit about the other cetaceans that you have been observed, maybe especially in your time working on the coast of Oregon with gray whales?
Sure. I was very lucky that for sort of as part of my lab, I had the opportunity to do other types of cruises that weren't just like our local gray whale fieldwork. Although during local gray whale fieldwork, we almost always see harbor porpoises, which are very cute.
Yes.
And seals and sea lions, and the occasional killer whale. And by occasional, I mean very occasional. I don't tend to see gray whales on those days. But I have done some marine mammal observing on sort of larger cruises that go offshore and have seen so many amazing species. One of my personal favorite is a Dall's porpoise. They're so pretty, and they have this iconic rooster tail splash, and I just like love when you can see them coming from far away because you see the splash and you can start yelling, Dall's porpoises. Obviously, I mean, love being surrounded by Pacific white-sided dolphins, Rizzo's dolphins a couple times, sperm whales, fin whales, blue whales, humpbacks. Maybe a sei whale, but we couldn't agree on the ID.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Oh,
Fascinating.
Nice.
Just we don't talk to a lot of people in Oregon. Just one of those weird things. Like all the Washington's got the orca people, and then California, and then. But there's whales there.
Our first Oregon guest, I think.
Oh my gosh! Well, you gotta tap into the Marine Mammal Institute because they're jam packed with whale nerds over there.
Absolutely. But now you're not there anymore.
No, I'm not there anymore.
What are you doing now in Washington at the marine something ecosystem?
Marine ecology and telemetry research.
There we go. I knew telemetry was there at somewhere.
Yeah. Also known as Mar Ecotel is sort of the other name. So it's I am a very newly hired research scientist with them, and so they do a lot of, as their name suggests, so a lot of telemetry research, so analyzing some tag data, but then also drone photogrammetry, which is sort of bread and butter, or sort of what I've done for a long time, which is the science of measuring the whales from drone imagery. And so for that work, I am working on some beaked whale projects and fin whale projects. Most of the data collected sort of off of Southern California. We do a lot of work on sort of disturbance, noise disturbance on the animals, which was also part of my work up in Oregon with the gray whales.
Right.
But yeah, so far it's been a lot of just like digging into data organization and especially the drone data and to figure out where everything lives.
Finding all the data. Who has?
Are you going out into the field this summer?
So we actually do more field work in the fall and spring.
Cool.
So, which is
Handy.
nice for me
Yeah.
to sort of get the summer to settle in here,
Yeah.
Nice.
after a big move. But
Yeah.
yeah, we'll definitely get back out in the water soon.
Very cool.
We haven't really talked about this, but can you talk about photogrammetry and just flying
Yeah.
drones for whales? Because I know that that's like, at least gray whales don't move very fast often.
Yeah.
So it's probably easier than other ones, but like, what's that? We
Yeah.
haven't talked to anyone about this, like
Like
taking
the actual
pictures of,
flying the drone.
taking pictures of
Yeah.
whales from above and how to do that, and then, you know,
Yeah.
put all your rulers on it and figure out what's going on.
Yeah. I mean that latter part, the putting a ruler on it, is much harder than
Yeah, I bet.
than you want it to be.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like it feels like it should be so easy.
Yeah.
But this is I think my 8th year now doing this kind of work, and it is still complicated.
Ugh. Yeah.
So, well, I guess to talk about like the flying part.
Mm-hmm.
So I am a drone pilot and
So cool.
did a lot of the data collection for the gray whales. And you are right that the whale itself is not terribly hard to follow most of the time. But we are working off of like a tiny zodiac in the
Oh, yeah.
Pacific.
Yep.
Bumpy.
So a very stable platform to work off of, I'm sure.
So like I don't like flying over the animal is that,
not
takes
that's
a
not
minute,
the problem
but
yet.
is not the problem. The problem is landing the drone back in someone's hands
Right. Oh,
Yeah.
on
yeah.
a boat in the Pacific.
Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
Which when I was first starting out, I always wish I like had a Fitbit on me, because I swear my heart rate was probably hitting like 160
Oh,
or
yeah.
something
Oh, man.
terrible. I was
Bring the drone in.
so nervous. And then it's like, I mean, the paranoia of like you're responsible for thousands of dollars worth of equipment hovering over the ocean. You want to get good data, and you don't want to like hurt your friend when you
Yeah.
bring it back. So definitely, it caused me a lot of stress when I was starting out, and does still, just less.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I recently had the opportunity to go to Brazil and fly over some Guiana dolphins down there.
cool.
And that was so different because they're
They're
so
so
tiny.
fast and tiny. Yeah.
And they're so fast, but there's also so many of them that
Yeah.
you kind of can just be like, I'm just gonna zoom
different one.
around and
See what happens.
like you're not, it's less sort of with our gray whale work, because it's this long-term study and it's longitudinal, so we knew all the gray whales by name.
Right.
And so if we came up on a group of, I mean, this is like an extreme example, but some days where like there were 10 whales around us,
Ooh.
in a fairly small area, and we needed to get footage of every individual
Right.
because we needed that data. And it was kind of a fond memory from the later years when we were this well-oiled machine, because we had this amazing my fellow PhD student who was like amazing at photo ID live in the field, and then I was flying, and so she would like basically help direct me to get over not just a gray whale, which is not as hard, but then to like
but a specific-
switch between individuals.
Yeah, like a certain one, the one,
Yeah,
crossed
a
off the
certain
list.
exactly. And so
Yeah.
that was
Oh, sounds
trickier. Or when they're like traveling and sort of going under the water, and then you're chasing them on a boat, so you're like holding yourself to the boat using your feet,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh.
like clenching your core for your life, and you're like,
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
Sounds
but
like an
but
adventure.
it's an adventure, once it just has to get back in someone's hands, and then it's all good.
Yeah.
So is it one shot? Like, I would assume you're going to take more shots just in case, but is it only
Or is
one angle orientation, or do you try and do different ones, or?
Yeah. So back to the question of how we measure the whales, or what that process is like. We have to film in nadir, so with the camera pointed straight down. So the camera on the drone is on like a gimbal, so you can sort of look up or down, but we need the camera to be facing exact straight down in
Right.
order to be
So
able
you
to
get the right
measure.
angle. Yeah.
Exactly. And then so that's kind of, and we just film continuous video for as long
Okay.
as we can see so we're filming in video, and then we'll extract frames for
Yeah,
the actual
makes
measuring
sense.
part. And then the process of the getting your actual measurement is so complicated, in part because to know how long that object is. You need to know how much area is represented by a single pixel, so the little squares that make up a photo. And to get that, you need to know specs about the camera, so like focal length and sensor width and all of this blah blah stuff that is harder to get out of the camera than you want it to be, but once you get the numbers, it's going to be the same.
Yeah, for each one.
the whole
For a whole
time.
run. Yeah.
And then the big beast is the distance from the camera to the whale, which is the altitude of the drone.
Yes.
Which I could talk for legitimate hours about how terrible this is. But essentially, your basic drone comes with a barometer, so it's measuring barometric pressure as a proxy for altitude, but that's susceptible to like changes in temperature and wind and humidity, which, I don't know, on the ocean that changes sometimes.
All the time.
All the time.
So barometers are not very accurate, which then makes your measurement pretty inaccurate. So we've started attaching laser altimeters, so it sort of like uses laser, so like light, but sort of the concept is like echolocation, so it like pings laser beams and then it looks at the time it took for it to come back. And that's a lot more accurate, but obviously sometimes that's also imperfect, and so we've spent years and years developing methods for basically quantifying uncertainty properly from the altitude. So we actually fly over like a wooden board in the water every day that we're in the field.
Calibration kind of.
Exactly. It's called our calibration object. Yeah. And we have all these like fancy statistical models to try and get uncertainty, and it's when I've taught it to new people and they're just like, oh, but isn't it like, do I really need to do this? I'm like, I know it feels like you shouldn't, but you do.
Yeah, you'll be mad if you don't when you get back and have to do your trigonometry. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Have you found that like computer and like AI processing of this has helped over the last few years, or is it still pretty not drastically changed?
It's we're getting there. It's not really changed, like in terms of the problems with uncertainty, it's not really helping.
Yeah, no, it's not going to fix that. No,
it's not going to fix that, but it is. We are like developing models to help with like the tedious extracting the snapshot and measuring the whale bit. Yeah. So that
was what I was meaning. Yeah,
exactly.
Like and the processing.
Yeah, and so that is coming along. Cool. For sure. It is. Yeah, it's tricky. Yeah. It's something that we are starting to use, and we have the lab at OSU did develop a model that worked on gray whales. Yeah. I think sometimes it's hard for us to let go of our like human control, sometimes we end up doing more of it manually than you would think, but it definitely is a big help for sure.
Well, because I was just going to ask about like, especially when you're looking at body condition and like skinny versus normal versus pregnant versus whatever, I'm sure that you do actual scientific measurements on different body parts and stuff, but like when a person who's experienced, you look at the photo and you just have the vibes already because you've looked at 7,000 gray whale photos. So you're like, this one is probably pregnant, like that kind of stuff of just, there's so much experience you can't have a computer replace, right? That's the whole thing.
You definitely, you get the vibes, although sometimes you get the numbers later and you're like, wow, my vibe was really affected by watercolor.
Oh yeah, I guess so. With this kind of whale,
Yeah, but for us, and it's a lot of just like finding the moment where the whale seems perfectly flat at the surface. Like, I don't know if I trust. Like, there's just so many aspects that go into picking the right image to measure that it's hard to train a computer to like learn all of them. But we've gotten it to help sort of speed up the process so we can do the filtering, but not so much of the annoying sort of bulk steps.
Yeah, like it gets rid of all the like blurry, like images that are too blurry or images that are there's no whales in. Yeah. I work in a sort of, I don't do a huge amount with imagery, but we have teams sort of in the more like geotechnical engineering space, so lots of like LiDAR imagery and things like that. And we definitely have lots of like machine learning tools that help with like narrowing down where the humans need to look at stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and that was Jeremy on the Guyana dolphins with he had like an insane number of of photos to go through, and the computer could help at least
Yeah.
find the ones that he needed to actually look at with his eyeballs. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
they help,
Very
just
cool.
not as much as
Yes.
we
Not as much. Yeah,
wish they would.
they're not magic buttons.
not as
Yeah.
much as they do in the movies. You know, all those movies
Yes.
about Graywell photogrammetry. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, is there anything else about your new work or Graywells or research that we haven't talked about yet? Like, why'd you pick Graywells? No, I'm not biased. This is a actual question.
Like an actual
Yeah. Well, it's funny. I didn't pick Grey Wells. They picked me.
Aw.
No. Well, I guess Lee, my PhD advisor, sort of picked them for me. That was the project that she like needed someone to work on when I
Right.
started grad school. Definitely fell in love with them along the way. And it's funny because my PhD was actually studying how these whales feed. So it was all behavior with like this big side project of the photogrammetry that will never end. But yeah, so for my PhD, I used the photogrammetry data, but then I manually watched 7 years of the drone footage and I annotated, okay, whale A is doing a headstand, whale B is feeding upside down. Because these gray whales, we can see how they're feeding because the water is so shallow. And so they actually have 9 different foraging tactics. And so I annotated which tactic who was using when, and then linked it to all of that information that we had about them from the longitudinal data, and was able to sort of actually find that young whales use different foraging tactics than older whales. Yeah, which was really fun.
That sounds like
that's very cool.
so much work. Like, I know it's a PhD, but just like the marking every single feeding thing and then going through all of that. That's a lot of footage to go through. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like the first 4 years of my PhD were just
Right.
that. And then everything went very fast at the end.
Yes. Makes sense. Makes sense. Speaking, I guess, a little bit about your PhD, maybe before we move on to our sort of segments that we do at the end of the podcast, do you want to talk a little bit about your sort of general career trajectory or career journey?
Yeah.
We often have lots of listeners of all ages, not just, you know, what you would normally think of as early, like young students, but of all ages wanting to, you know, know more about getting into cetacean research and any tips for success or that would be amazing.
So my path, I was like a textbook child that decided she was going to be a marine biologist. Was not a hardcore whale girl though at the time. Was just like ocean, something in the ocean. Don't know what. Ocean. But that sort of, I knew that's what I wanted to do. And so I was lucky enough to go to Duke University for my undergrad, which has this big marine lab where you can spend semesters as an undergraduate taking classes and working with professors in like a small classroom setting, which is why I wanted to go to Duke and chose it.
Right.
And so then that's where that started my career and put me on this path. And I actually, in undergrad, didn't study whales then either. I fell in love with GIS, the mapping software, which I realize is like not a common statement. Love and GIS in the same sentence isn't what you typically hear, but I really enjoyed it and thought it was just really cool what you could do with it. And this was around the time that drones were like becoming the tool in marine science and in whale cetacean science specifically. And so I was lucky that Dave Johnston, who's a professor at Duke, was like starting a drone lab for marine science at the time. And I got in with him for an independent study, studying penguin imagery from the Western Antarctic Peninsula. And so I like developed tools to automatically count how many penguins there were on an island from thermal imagery, which was fun.
So cool.
That's very cool.
And I did that for my undergrad, and then I knew I wanted to go to grad school, but I didn't quite feel ready to go like straight to a PhD, but I didn't really wasn't super interested in a master's at the time. I kind of didn't really understand what a master's of science really was at that point. I was just thought, like, I knew I wanted a PhD. I just knew I didn't want to start it immediately. And so I actually ended up, what I decided was that I really wanted to work as a research assistant or like a technician.
Right.
And so I was really lucky, and I told Dave, my undergrad advisor, that I'd be interested in staying in the lab as a technician after I graduated if there was funding, and he found funding for me. So I was hired as a research assistant in the marine robotics and remote sensing lab at Duke University. And that year, like, really put me on my career path. So my job was to, and I quote, do cool science and help people in the lab. It was really
Sounds
sort
like
of open. It was
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty great. Which I mean, also like as a fresh out of undergrad, I was like, wait, but direction? Like what?
Yeah.
But I learned a lot about like structuring your own time
Mhm.
and those skills that are very important now. And so I kept doing like I
bet.
worked on publishing my penguin research from undergrad, but then kind of like spent a long time in the lab being like, does anyone need help? Like I can do GIS or I can code for you. And basically Casey Bierlich, then a PhD student in the lab, now he's actually also at Oregon State University, was starting his PhD on photogrammetry of whales. And he took me up on my offer for help, and that is when we started developing like all of these methods for how to measure animals, and this whole altitude problem started then. And actually, Dave
Nice.
was very kind and he sent me to Antarctica to do some field work, which was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
And so that's like when I got experience with drones and whales in the field. And that is when I was like, oh, I think I want to study whales, was then when I was sort of
Right.
actively doing it. And I just loved that drones were letting us answer these extremely basic questions for the first time.
Yeah.
Like, how big is that animal is objectively an extremely basic question.
Mhm.
But for whales, it was
So
impossible
hard
to
to
answer
tell.
unless
Yeah.
it was dead.
Yeah.
And so all of these things that we could, and this perspective was totally revolutionizing what we could do. And so I just thought that was so cool and such a fun moment. And I like loved the technology side.
Yeah.
And so that like sort of drove like the kinds of programs I applied to for grad school. And yeah, that's Lee Torres, my advisor at OSU,
Awesome.
accepted me into her lab and had funding for my PhD. And so yeah, basically
Yeah.
brought me to where I am now.
Nice.
Amazing.
That's amazing. Wow.
Yeah. Kind of like a sort of like adjacent, but question on behalf of me. Do you find that there's a lot of overlap between like what you liked about studying GIS and what you like about doing drone research? Like, do you find that
Yeah.
that was what I was thinking too. It's like there is, it doesn't seem like it, but like there is a lot of overlap, and I bet in terms of like the skills and the problems
yeah.
you're solving, or the tools,
Yeah. And I mean, I have like still use GIS every once in a while,
yeah.
sort of to process some of the drone data or to sort of give extra data to. So I use like the track line from the drone and then GIS to map like what habitat the whale was in under the drone.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it is just this idea of like technology and cool software that helps us solve problems. And now I get to help make some of the software to help us solve these problems. And yeah, it definitely
Very
is
cool.
the vibe of things that I enjoyed from the beginning.
Nice. Oh, that's very, very cool.
Wow. Before we continue with the rest of the episode, we want to take a moment to tell you about how you can support our podcast and everything we do at Whale Tales.
You can join us and become a patron at patreon.com/whaletales. You can join for $1 a month at the porpoise level, $5 a month at the dolphin level, or $10 a month at the whale level.
And each level comes with a variety of perks, like postcards, access to extended interviews or stories with our guests, and you can even produce your own fun flip or fact segment of the pod. This month, we also have a journal club episode going up for our dolphin and whale level patrons. This is an extra podcast that we do every other month for dolphin and whale level patrons, where we read a scientific article and discuss it. And then on the other months, when it's not Journal Club, we do another special podcast for our whale level patrons only, and that's called Whale Tales Watches, where we watch a thing and we talk about it. So for Journal Club this month, we read a really awesome article that I'm very excited to talk about because we're going to be recording that later. And that is about, can I say what it's about? Is it okay to spoil that? Yes.
This comes out after, so it's fine.
Oh, yeah.
It's about type D killer whales.
Yeah. The
Yeah.
coolest.
It's very cool.
Yes.
We also have an extra story up on our Patreon this month from Lucy. Lucy sent us an incredible voice memo earlier this summer about her first ever whale watching trip here in the Salish Sea. We're always so excited to get stories like that. I think they might be my favorite kind. I love when people get to see whales. So you can listen to that story at the $1 a month and up level. We've got a couple of extra stories on there. And remember, you can always send us a voice memo with your story, and we get on our Patreon and also on our website and all of that stuff. And it's so great, and we love getting stories like that.
Thank you so much to all of our patrons. You are amazing, and we're so grateful for your support.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. And if you aren't able to support us financially, there are still tons of things that you can do to help us out. First of all, you're listening to us, and that's amazing. So thank you very much for that. You can also leave us a rating and review on your podcast platform of choice, principally Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Doing that helps other people find us so that then more people can listen and we get into more people's ears, and that's always really fun. Plus, then you have more people to talk to about us and about whales and all the things that you love about them. And you can do that especially if you tell your cetacean, science, podcast, nerd, whatever awesome friends you have about our podcast, and then you can all listen together, especially when you go on road trips to go see whales and then send to Whale Tale. It's a
multi-step
It's like an
process.
ecosystem.
Yes, science.
Yes.
You can also follow us on social media. We're at whaletails.org or whaletails_org, basically everywhere. Plus, you can send us your feedback there or anywhere to help making us the podcast even better.
Yay.
Well, this is normally where Nicole would
Sing a
little song, but she's having some technicalities. So we want to maybe start with maybe sharing a fun flipper fact for our audience. It could be anything, and don't worry about it if you think that maybe people know it already, or it's too obscure. Anything you've got.
Yeah, well, my fact will just stick with the gray whale party.
Perfect.
It's a fact that came out of my PhD, which is that if you ever see a gray whale or off like really close to shore and you see a big bubble come to the surface, we call that a bubble blast, and that is probably the whale doing a big exhale to help it sink and be able to keep feeding.
Oh, that's cool. How did I not know that?
Cool. No.
I love it.
Makes sense though.
Yeah.
You know, lungs and internal
pressure and
flotation. Yeah.
Exactly.
Amazing.
Crazy.
That is really cool. Nice. Okay, well, the next thing we're going to ask is if you would like to share a whale tale with us, a cetacean encounter, any species, any time. You've obviously mentioned a few amazing species you've already that you've been lucky enough to see, and you got to go to Antarctica, and so anything. And if it's a gray whale, that's okay too.
No, more than okay.
More
Highly
than okay.
encouraged.
We like to hear stories about all cetaceans. So anything you'd love to share.
Yeah. Well, I will tell a gray whale story because,
Excellent.
I mean, why not? I could tell non-gray whale stories, but nah. I sort of mentioned a little bit of it earlier, but we obviously know our gray whales that we see off of Newport very well. We see them all the time. There's probably, 10 to 20 that we could recognize on site without like the photo, without doing any matching. You can just look at it by the naked eye and say, oh, I know who you are. And Lee and I had the opportunity to go to Baja, to the lagoons in the winter to do a little sort of pilot project with the collaborator. And everyone was asking us, oh, do you think you're going to see one of your whales? Do you think you're going to see one of your whales? And I kept saying, no way. Like, there's thousands of
so many.
the other whales, and there's our data set is barely 200, and like the whales that I will recognize immediately, like that's even like there's no way. And the first day that Lee and I are in the lagoon, and this is like the crazy friendly gray whale behavior where the gray whales like come up to the boat of their own volition, which is just mind blowing. And they roll around and they lift their head up and they touch the boat and they let you touch them. And so like we're overwhelmed by this experience because that is not what happens in Oregon. And I'm taking photos and Lee grabs my arm and she goes, oh my God. And I was like, what? She's like, did you see that? And I was like, no, I was taking a photo of this other whale. And she goes, I think that's Pac-Man, who's one of our like diehard, we see this whale all the time in Oregon. And I was like, what? And this is like, we've been on the water for like an hour. Like this is day one, super early. And then I'm like, well, I have flown over this whale a lot. I know what the top of its fluke looks like, the top. And this whale puts its head under the boat and lifts its fluke out of the water. And I look at it and I scream.
Oh my gosh.
And Lee and I both at the same moment go, ah! And point and start screaming, go like losing it. And all the other people on the boat are like not like they're all like Mexican collaborators, and they're like, what is happening to these two? And we're like, almost like I just could not believe it that this whale Pac-Man that we see in Oregon all the time was in that lagoon on that day and chose to come to our boat and lift her fluke in front of my face. And I just was like, I mean, to this day, it's one of the craziest things that's happened to me.
That's a beautiful, serendipitous, delightful.
Yeah.
Very cool.
That whale was like, well, I've got some stalkers, but it's okay.
Yeah.
Well, and then that is the first whale that the team saw on the first day of field work months later.
That's so awesome.
Oh, that's funny.
She's into it.
Yeah. She's our bestie.
Yeah, mutual stalking.
Yeah, exactly. So, how was your trip?
Yeah, exactly.
How was your summer vacation or winter vacation? Okay, so before we wrap up, we try to leave our listeners with something that they can do to help support whales and the ocean and the world around us. So do you have any calls to action to leave our listeners with, maybe in particular about gray whales?
Yeah. Well, I sort of have a smaller scale one and a larger scale one.
Perfect.
The smaller scale, which is very much applicable to gray whales, especially like the Pacific Coast Feeding Group, is summer is starting, boating season is starting. And so if you are a recreational or professional boater that is on the water, especially in those coastal waters where we often have whales, remember, if you see a blow, go slow. So just like slow down, turn your engine off if a whale approaches you. And then if you have the ability to sort of spread the message or put up signage around other boaters, please do, and remind them to slow down, because we do see ship strikes, but not like ship strikes, like evidence of smaller propeller injuries on a lot of our gray whales, because they're in the water, they're closer to wreck boats than they are to the big boats.
Yeah, to the big ones.
If you are in a recreational boating community, spread the word and follow that yourself. And then the bigger one, which is just related to the strandings, which is just to vote and to vote for people that care about climate change and are going to enact policy to help us fight it. Because at the end of the day, we can reduce risk of ship strike and entanglement and all sorts of things, but climate change is going to affect all of us, and the whales especially. It already is. And so it's it's a really big problem. It's, not a small scale thing, but just vote.
And
absolutely.
An excellent ongoing reminder. Amazing.
Yes. So great. I'm so glad that I did learn about these animals, and as long as I don't have to photo ID them personally anymore, then I can get behind liking gray whales.
Happy to support experts like yourself in this. Lindsay and I on our depot bay, like, it was actually really great because we were in such a small boat, and being able to see them in such shallow water and such high concentration,
and they did often more exciting behaviors also. Not that I'm need them to, but it's still nicer too.
I mean, often you're out on a boat here and you're like, is that a log or is it a gray whale? Like,
Yeah.
So,
and then it goes down and you're like, oh, that was a gray whale, obviously. But that's the extent of the encounter.
The sightings
sighting.
It was super cool, and to learn about that population and all of that, and also just like it was like 3 minutes from when we got on the boat, as opposed to here where most of the time it's 2 hours to whales.
It was like a small boat, and so we left early because everybody was there, and so I think we saw whales before the official start time of our tour.
It is. I mean, my first day of gray whale fieldwork, I was used to go drive around forever and maybe not see one, and we left the channel, and then there was a whale, and I was like, oh,
I think we saw 8 more for eating lunch also, and just okay, we're over this now. They're just everywhere. But it was
in
cool.
The best way possible.
It was nice because it was our first boat trip after COVID, so it was a long time since we'd seen whales, so that was nice.
Oh, good.
It was good.
So thank you so much, Clara, and telling us all this new information. Love to learn new things. So yay.
Oh, of course. And Best of luck at your
new job and
new gig.
Oh,
Very
thank
exciting.
you.
That wraps it up for today, folks. We would love to hear your thoughts on this episode, or really any episode or anything. So please visit our website, whale-tales.org, where you can find links to all of our various social media handles, and you can drop us a line.
You can also head to the website to subscribe to our podcast, learn about supporting us and becoming a patron, and check out over 1,600 whale, dolphin, and porpoise stories.
That's whale-tales.org, tales like the stories, not tales like the animal.
You can find Clara on Blue Sky at Clara Bird, on Instagram at Clara Bird Ferrer, which is Ferrer, and you can also find the Gem Lab on Instagram at gem_lab.
And if you've seen a cetacean, we would love to add your story to our library. You can click the share link on our website. You can contact us on social media, or you can email us a voice memo and tell us all about your incredible cetacean encounter.
Finally, we want to acknowledge that we recorded today's episode on the unceded territories of the Coast Salish peoples and the Musqueam, Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, Shianu, and Sauk nations. Newport, Oregon, where Clara did her research, is located within the traditional homelands of the Yacona, the Tillamook, and the Siletz people.
Thank you all so much, and we hope you have a really great day.